I'm Jahowie Batoli, eco-filmmaker and wildlife specialist.
And I'm Ella Meek, co-founder of Kids Against Plastic and all-round animal lover.
Welcome to our weekly update on the health of our planet and its animals.
This is The Pulse.
Coming up on today's programme,
We'll be hearing from a renowned Indigenous chief fighting for control of her tribe's traditional lands.
the Great Barrier Reef's spectacular annual event.
And we'll delve into some of this week's more unusual eco-news stories.
Hey Ella,
Hi Jahowie, how are you doing?
I'm good. Just literally got out the sea a couple of minutes ago from diving.
That sounds very fun, more exciting than my boring schoolwork, but hey, at least it's almost the holidays.
True. So, what's grabbed your attention in the news this week?
According to a recent report, over the past 10 years there's been lots of resistance from Indigenous peoples against the oil and gas projects happening across North America. And their work has stopped about 1.6 billion tonnes of greenhouse gases from being emitted into the atmosphere, and that's about the equivalent of taking 345 million cars off the road.
Wow, that's remarkable. Personally, I think it's great to see such groups standing up to governments and big industry in an attempt to reduce further fossil fuel extraction.
Yeah, Frida Hewson of the Wet'suwet'en tribe has been campaigning against the Coastal GasLink pipeline that runs across her tribe's traditional lands in Western Canada.
We've been here since time immemorial, before anybody came to these lands, and your law can bend the rules to let somebody come in and destroy our land. And you get you guys to help them. If it was your house, you'd feel the same.
You're trespassing on Wet'suwet'en land! You continue to remove us forcibly from our lands with your rifles, with your semi-automatic weapons. Nothing has changed in 150 years.
Only last week, the company responsible for building the pipeline were ordered to address the outstanding environmental breaches by the State Environment Department. Also last week, Frida was recognised for all of her work and was awarded a Right Livelihood Award, which is considered to be the equivalent of a Nobel Prize. Earlier, I got the chance to speak to Frida. As the law currently stands, what rights do your people have to your ancestral lands?
So we have legal documents showing that we have every right to be on those lands, and they're just ignoring it to benefit and suit themselves, the government and industry.
Tell us what direct action you and your people took to delay and resist the pipeline's construction.
In 2020, we were just doing a ceremony, and we lit a ceremony fire right in the middle of the road, and so we got arrested. And after we got arrested, a lot of our supports were outraged, and Canada ended up getting shut down because the railways were blocked, the ports were blocked, so people were outraged that we were forcibly removed off our land because we have every legal rights to be on our own lands.
The Coastal GasLink pipeline, which you have strongly opposed, is still under construction. What kind of precedent do you think this sets for other Indigenous lands?
Well, Coastal GasLink has been ruthless and is still trying to build their project, and I believe the Canadian government and industry is trying to make an example out of us and trying to put fear in us by sending in militarized police. They didn't want us to be successful because they said we'd set precedents for other First Nations in Canada.
Thanks for speaking to us, Frida. So, Jahowie, have you ever seen these before?
Well, for once, I actually know what you're showing me.
I'm not quite sure if they're exactly what you think they are. They're not just an ordinary pair of shoes. These are called Johnny shoes, and they can actually grow into trees.
Grow into trees? So do they grow into trees and produce more trainers?
That would be very cool. I don't think that's quite how it works, though. It is a very exciting invention. It's made fully of biodegradable materials and has an apple seed in the sole. So when you're done with using your trainers, instead of just letting them go to landfill, you can plant them in the ground and a tree will grow.
Simple as that. So Ella, last week Australia's Great Barrier Reef had its annual spawning event.
Oh, so do corals only spawn once a year?
Yeah, and because males and females can't move into reproductive contact, they simultaneously release both eggs and sperm at the same time over, let's say, a 2-week period to increase chances of successful reproduction.
I'd never really thought about how corals reproduce before.
It's fascinating, you know. Yesterday when we were out on the boat, we actually saw coral spawn as well. So it seems to be happening on this side of the world too. Earlier, I spoke to Kate Quigley of the Australian Institute of Marine Science about the event and how she goes about collecting samples for her research in creating more heat-resilient coral. Hi, Kate. Thanks for joining us. So, what is the current condition of the Great Barrier Reef?
So the Great Barrier Reef is a very complex and biodiverse ecosystem that is roughly the size of Italy. And generally, we like to think of the Great Barrier Reef as one of the most healthy reef ecosystems in the world. And that's due to really good management, as well as predominantly being very far from the coastline. Unfortunately, the last few years, since 2016, have been pretty catastrophic on the reef. We've had these really big bleaching events, and that has really corresponded to a lot of death on the Great Barrier Reefs.
Can you explain to me the significance of this spawning event on the Great Barrier Reef?
So coral spawning is so important for the Great Barrier Reef because that is the time of renewal and recovery for this ecosystem. And so if it only occurs once or twice a year, that is really the only opportunity that the reef has for the next generation of corals. So in 2016, 2017, and then again in 2020, we had these mass die-offs of corals. So we lost a lot of corals in these just a few years. And so we're really relying on natural spawning events like the spawning that we had this year to help repopulate coral reefs with the new generation of babies in order to get this recovery into the future.
How will the work you're doing help with the conservation of the Great Barrier Reef?
So at AIMS, as part of the Reef Restoration and Adaptation Program, I'm looking at selective breeding in corals. And so what this entails is choosing parent corals that we know are good at surviving high seawater temperatures and mixing their eggs and sperm in specific combinations in order to produce baby corals or the next generation of corals that will be better able to survive warming temperatures in the future. So potentially, if we can get this kind of intervention to scale, we could essentially plant these heat-tolerant, resistant baby corals back onto the Great Barrier Reef in order to help recovery in the years to come.
Thanks for talking with me today, Kate.
Jahawi, take a look at this. It's a young leopard that's gone into a home in Karnataka in South India.
Wow, poor leopard. I mean, that leopard does look fairly young, so maybe he was out looking for food and got trapped in someone's house and obviously just panicked.
Yeah, you do have to feel bad for the leopard. It must have been very scary. But you also feel for the people too, because imagine how terrifying it would be having the leopard lunge at you like that.
Yeah, I mean, a leopard backed into a corner is not a happy leopard.
No, absolutely not. But luckily there were wildlife officers who came to help the leopard out and take it back into the wild.
So Ella, researchers in the USA have found out that they can use methane emissions to grow food for fish, and it's actually cheaper and more sustainable than extracting fish from the wild to feed fish farms.
So how does that work?
Well, currently it's in research stages, but methane is captured and used to feed these microorganisms, which in turn become fish food. Therefore, this takes out harmful greenhouse gases from the atmosphere and further reduces the need for more fishing.
Oh, that's really interesting. I actually found another story that involves using waste and turning it into usable products. And that's a way of turning plastic bottles into vanilla.
Really? You must be joking.
I know it sounds pretty crazy, but researchers have engineered E. coli bacteria to specifically turn a substance from plastic bottles into vanillin, which is the organic compound which gives vanilla its taste and its smell.
Wow, I mean, that's really interesting because vanilla is used in everything from food to pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and even cleaning products.
Yeah, exactly. The natural supply of vanilla can't keep up with the demand for it. So already lots of our vanilla is synthesized from chemicals derived from fossil fuels. And this would be a way of using less fossil fuels and using up waste from plastic.
So potentially in the future, we could all be eating ice cream made from plastic bottles?
And apples grown from shoes.
Well, on that note, bye-bye.
Bye!